Okay. There we go. So, reflecting on part, I guess it would be 5, reflecting on part 5, and you heard uh, the whole story, if you will, in 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 face value, but behind the scenes there was a lot going on as well. And I'm gonna post more interactions that I had on scene. And there's a couple flags that need to be raised here. Is number one, um, the second shift, I believe, that I was at Shoals, we went to one of their headquartered locations there in Bessemer and made sure that all of the monitors were changed. So they made sure to orchestrate the changing of the monitors. So there was no record of the calls. Okay. So I couldn't go back and pull up vitals, right, of this particular case that I explained. That's just one case, by the way. I couldn't go and pull up back the EKG because they made sure to change all of the stuff around and make sure there was no record of it. I took photos on the first shift in the rainy conditions and frankly not wanting to put seatbelts on the patient. I took photos of this severely hypoxic gentleman. They went in my phone, removed both days, those photos of both days. Okay. So I took photos and they were taken and removed from my phone. The second I had put on the EPCR, that I believe it was the second or third shift, that in the exceptions section, that on one of the calls I was delayed by fire. Brian Canterbury took over the EPCR from there forward, including last calls where the gentleman, we had just a complete carnival, right? That particular call, Brian Canterbury took over that call, took over the EPCR and made sure that he documented and didn't want me to document anything. Okay. And that just says something as well. So they're perpetually ambushing you and setting you up and then making sure that ahead of time there's nothing to document, nothing to report. Okay. At no time did either supervisor, Franklin or Brian Canterbury, exhibit any form of what I would call the consensus, who would consider the leadership styles of transformational or transactional. So there was no leadership at all. And this is a common behavior, and they all act and do the same things. When you get on scene, you're interrupted. When you get on scene, your autonomy is taken away from you. When you get on scene, they counter your action. When you do an interview, you're always interrupted. Okay. And so this is going to kind of trickle into regional paramedics and other scenarios. But I want you to know that that's also what transpired, is that Brian Canterbury made sure that documentation of this call was his. They made sure that the life packs were switched over and there was no evidence of the calls, of any of the vitals I was concerned about. They made sure to go through my phone and erase any evidence of those vitals and any evidence of the dangerous ambient conditions. And then you hear the narcissistic termination by HR in the preamble, which is part 1 of the video. Additionally, on that call, I seen they're following this protocol, right? This hypoglycemic protocol on the 10th edition of BRIMS. I get it. But I also went and checked, and I remember on scene as we were exiting the patient's door, I asked the firefighter if he had given thiamine. Okay. This was part of the protocol. His answer was no, he's not. Something about starving or something like that, which I have his response on that as well. But they didn't start that. So the thing about it is, there was the engine has 5 people, 1 medic, 2 guys. We're doing this IV. 1 guy's just standing around looking. Okay, so I'm going to post the interaction and the exact verbal dialogue so you can hear that. But at the same time, all of this subversion is going on. I also want you to know that I'm responsible for going to school, paying my bills, and the whole time I'm being stalked outside of work, right? I have subversion with roommates and their behavior as well in my own residence, okay? And then when I go to collect this information on a thumb drive and on a hard drive, I have another entity going through and removing that from the thumb drive and the hard drive as I'm making file transfers and starting to consolidate. Okay. Additionally, I have some attorneys who don't want to even work with me, and they just, make sure that I don't attain an attorney. So if the picture isn't being painted for you, and I don't know how else to paint it, but this is textbook COINTELPRO, using these McCarthy-like tactics. And I'm in school. I'm dealing with sexual harassment in school at Jefferson State. I want to add that I sent a letter to the Office of EMS, and they've done nothing. Okay, and I'll show you that letter. I've gotten no feedback. I've cited Alabama seatbelt laws. I've cited the Office of EMS protocols. Okay. I've cited a lot of specific quantitative violations of code, within their own handbook. I haven't received any correspondence back. I received propaganda in the mail. One of those things was a book titled When to Lead, When to Follow. Okay. And it was in blue, and they've been using the blue vehicles as you see in previous videos. And I'll go to the gym, right? So I went to the gym yesterday, and there's this perpetual color of blue. They're always putting blue somewhere around me where I walk, where I turn. If I'm lifting weights, they know where I'm standing, so they'll position like the blue water bottles. Or if I'm sitting there looking at the ground doing an exercise, they'll make sure to walk by with blue shoes, right? And this list goes on, and I can show you that too. I can upload that too. But it's this all-encompassing program of abuse. And then they try to hit you with slander and defamation. It's not that they try, it's that they do, actually. And then here we are exposing it. And if nothing was illegal going on, then I guess the question is why is it that there's this massive, campaign, if you will, or entity always residing over the evidence? Every time they're always residing over the evidence, or they're always ahead of me, making sure that the evidence is removed or it doesn't get, diffuse. So the other thing is I've worked in my first EMS jobs. The people who are over residing in my electronics were going in my electronics, and they would turn off the data when I'm trying to call into the hospital, right? They would turn that data off, and they would play with my phone every time I'm trying to access the phone to the hospital. They'll turn the phone off. And then while I'm working, while I'm in the back of the ambulance, toggling my phone. When I worked at American Medical Response, I would write up an EPCR and then IT or whoever, because again, I want you to remember that, and I don't want anybody, I guess it's just for me because I'm venting and blogging here. But it's important to know that every time my electronics are tampered with, it's any device with a Wi-Fi. So even though it wasn't my personal Wi-Fi, it was a tough book, right? Their tough books. In this case, American Medical Response's tough books. The people accessing that tough book while I'm actively using it would go through and play with the cursor. When I finish up an EPCR narrative, they would erase the narrative so that I would have to retype it. I remember one time, more than one time, I would type on the computer, and then the lady who I'm communicating with at the hospital, okay, this is the pre-arrival communication, she knows that my computer is being toggled with, and she'll use a semantic response or conversation. Hold on, my computer's not working. After they attack my computer, her response after I'm trying to talk to her, her dialogue is, hold on, my computer's not working. And so she makes sure to abuse me as well. And this goes on with other healthcare providers. This goes on with other patients. And if you think for a second this has some type of overriding HIPAA violations, you're completely wrong, because it's patients using their personal experiences, and I'm being connected with patients. Okay, I have a company right now who tries to suppress my exposure by sending me confidentiality training to try to suppress my mind. And this is how it works in real time. As I'm doing things, they're always sending me this propaganda, always trying to send me reasons to suppress my next actions or cause me to influence the actions. The reality of it is it's the patients that are involved. Just like when I did my 3 shifts at Shoals. The first patient, she had a problem with her eyes. That particular morning, I had a problem with my eyes. The next call, when I made the phone call, pre-arrival communication, I hung up after the call, and the patient wanted to ask me, well, how come you didn't tell them my name? And it's like the patients will go through and they'll start working on everything that I'm not supposed to be doing, and then they'll start doing it. The next patient wanted to give me money in the ER in front of everybody, try to give me a $5 bill. And it's this sequence of perpetual bombarding of subversion. And this is evidence in the CIA's manual of sabotage, which we'll get into on next episode. So I do want you to just know, recapping, that there's more to the last session at Shoals Ambulance that I did not say. And again, it's me asking about things like thiamine, which I have on record and I can say and show. It's me asking, about this oxygen deal, and it's on record. I can have you listen to that. I'll post that too, and it's being denied. It's about the constant sequence of events. If you heard the story, it goes through so many steps of subversion, so many denials, and so many problems along the way, even from the hospital diverting me, for example, same thing. And then Mr. Canterbury making sure, after the first time I started doing my own EPCR, not only did he make sure that he always had the computer, but he always made sure that when he showed it to me, he wasn't even using the chart method. Again, another type of abuse, right? And it's just all of this abuse that just builds up, and they're trying to get you to get triggered. And then when you go to the right people and the right personnel and the right entities and organizations, they're not doing anything about it. Okay, not only that, but it's the patients that are getting you set up, always asking you these questions or influencing you, right, to have this confrontation, right, all the time. And this is how the subversive process works, is this inundation of undermining, and it's an inundation of humility, an inundation of perpetual events that are orchestrated. And this is textbook subversion. So I hope you understand the last video. I'm going to post more about it. This is not the end of that particular series, so we're going to continue with it. Next video is going to have the dialogue between me asking about the ABCs, and you'll hear the reply from the one of 5 engine 4's members. Okay. I'll also post where I had to stop the ambulance. You're going to hear that interaction because the patient had come undone. So there's a whole backstory on this. And then the next series is going to be on regional paramedics. The next series will be on the background of the rest of the ambulance services. And then we're going to continue these series all the way into my personal life and how they've attacked that since I was a child.